Hi everyone, welcome to Go Bad Deli. I'm Chris King, and today we're reviewing Nobody Smiles. So to preface the album, I have to say I did listen to the deluxe edition, so it came with 3 extra tracks, which is pretty cool. I mean, it was a pretty good deal for this album. Overall, I was just really excited to get back into some good hip-hop. It's been a pretty good while since we've had any good big artists, veteran artists especially, drop a really big album like this. So I was pretty excited nonetheless. So jumping to the first category, as you know, we're going to review this album as we always do with 5 categories. So first one, mission. The overall mission of this album is pretty self-explanatory. The album itself is titled Nobody Smiles. So he's actually referring to Nobody Smiles in Chicago. So that being said, the mission, it really did succeed, his overall vision for the album. It really just takes us to the streets of Chicago, and he really wants to focus on the drug problems there, the violence problems there, the crime problems there. So with that being said, obviously, he's a really big lyricist. He's someone that I respect as one of the best lyricists in the hip-hop game, I mean, since, the 90s. Because of that, he really wanted to, like I said, focus on this specific issue. It's obviously an issue that's been plaguing the world. I mean, especially here in America, just these bigger cities, these kind of, inner city problems, these suburb, urban, problems that we all face, and I mean, at least a lot of people do. And we need to pay a little bit more attention to this. So that being said, the mission, he did succeed. It was a pretty good concept album, and I really enjoyed it. The lyrics made a lot of sense, everything, all the different tracks, they really did kind of make sense with the exception of, here or two there that kind of really just took you out of the moment for a second. But on that, really decent mission. Sound. Now, the overall sound on the record, it's a pretty much more involved record than he's usually put out. Most of his albums, they really just kind of sound like just EPs. They just really flow really well, and they all kind of have a similar sound. But this one struck me as a little bit odd in the sense that it was much more of a mixtape concept album. So that being said, the sound, it really did flow really well. As I said, his lyrics are always really on point, but the production work and samples did get a little bit too radio heavy at times, a little bit too pop heavy at times, and it didn't really sound like one of his specific albums, but the overall collaborative process, it did kind of really make a lot of sense. That leads into production. Now, with the production, my only issue and gripe with it is that he had about 7 writers. And as I said, Common is someone who is undisputed. Like, he is one of the best lyricists that's ever touched the microphone. So that being said, I mean, he knows what he's doing when his flow is working, when his rap is working. He knows how to sample really well, really Midwest sampling and beat work. And because of that, I mean, you always have really consistent, strong records that he puts out. But in this specific album, as I said, it is a much bigger involved process and a much bigger involved problem because he is with a different studio now and a different label. So, I mean, he had a lot of access, obviously, to a lot of writers. He's a really busy guy. Because of that, I mean, he's in television work, he's in film work, and, he does music whenever he can. So I understand he's definitely a busy guy. But when it's someone who's so iconic as Common, at least in the hip-hop world, you have someone who, when he's on a record, you know exactly when he's on. He has a very distinct voice and a distinct flow. I would like to see what his thoughts and what his method is on, solving this issue and how we can, put the public eye on this issue, in a bigger scope. Now, with the presentation and consistency, this is where the album falls off just a little bit. As I said, he had about 7 ghostwriters, or, I mean, at least like 5 writers and at least like 2 or 3 ghostwriters on this album. That people have actually come out and said, but it didn't really strike me as a consistent album. As I said, it might have suited him better to just put out a mixtape, a concept mixtape. That would have been really cool. I mean, the message is really strong. You have someone who knows how to express himself in such a dynamic way. So it would have been a little bit better if the presentation would have been bigger, like, hey, Common's coming back, here's his mixtape. Maybe his follow-up album could have been a much bigger project that he could involve, certain people. But because of this consistency, he had about like at least one kind of slow R&B song thrown in the middle. It didn't really flow with the album when you're trying to do something that is about frustration, that is about angst. It would have been a much better idea if he would have worked with someone who's much more familiar with those kind of beat works, those kind of samplings. But overall, I mean, really good project. Consistency was a little bit on the low side. Now, the atmosphere direction is obviously the most important category of when we do reviews. So the atmosphere and direction, he was really pushing again that he wants to bring the public eye on this issue in Chicago, which is, I totally respect that. I think it's an awesome idea. But, as I said, at the end of the day, he chose to put it out as an album. I think it would have suited him a little bit better as a mixtape. I think it would have got a lot more hype. Obviously, in the past weeks, it's just kind of fell off. So unfortunate for that. But it's something that I do encourage, you know, as a hip hop fan, and encourage other hip hop fans, especially up and coming MCs. If you want to know how to make a project that is related to a specific topic, this is one of those albums that you definitely want to give a listen, because other than a few tracks in there that I did just kind of delete out of the library after I listened to this album like at least 10 times, there's a few of them that just kind of struck me as odd. There's 2 tracks in this album that are at least under a minute, and those kind of tracks, they work for the album when they have maybe a skip behind it, maybe a monologue behind it, and where they add some sort of beat work that kind of transitions the album. But these 2 tracks, they were just kind of really odd. They just had like, I mean, some drum work, and I think one of them was just kind of a sample. But underneath a minute, it didn't really do anything for me, and it just kind of like, where's the music going? Where am I going? The transition didn't really work in that sense. So those 2, if you omitted those, you have a really strong album. And again, maybe in the future he will put out a mixtape. I think this is someone who, he is a veteran, but I mean, when he comes back on the mic, I mean, he does work. He does a lot of really good work. He puts out really consistent, good sounding records that are definitely just, I mean, he's one of the best hip hop MCs, maybe in the list of top 100. I wouldn't put him at the top, but he knows exactly what he's doing. And with this being said, Nobody Smiles, where does it go with his body of work? I think you're talking about at least one of the top 3 albums that he's put overall in his whole lifespan. I really enjoyed it. You know, because of that, we gave it a 4 out of 5. So very, very good album. I was really happy with having some good hip hop to listen to over the summer break and stuff. It's a strong album you can listen to in your car, when you're working out, whatever, just on your iPod, just kind of chilling. It's a really good sound. It's not really ambient. It's much more aggressive, much more as a frustration album. So that's really cool to have every now and then, and something that we don't really see in modern day radio hip hop. You know, so if you guys like the album, let us know down below. Hit us up on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. Let us know your opinion. Let us know what you're looking forward to in hip hop with some of these other coming artists. And if you think artists, like veteran artists like Common, you know, and some of these bigger guys should put out more music, let us know down below. Keep it locked here on Goodbye Deli for more music content.